Hello, everyone. This is the second class of the first week. Today, we're going to talk about variables, and we're also going to talk about data types. Yeah. On Monday, we talked about print statements. That's just also something that we're going to work on today. A quick overview, review of what we did last time. So basically, uh, yeah, so what we did basically, we said lowercase print in parentheses. We said in those quotation marks, we can write whatever we want, and then quotation marks, parentheses, and then it would show up in the console. It would show up in the console, right? So we're going to talk about what these parentheses mean as well as a bunch of other stuff today. What is all that? So let's open up by talking about the three data types. So there are three types of data in Python and also other programming languages, and that is, uh, whoops, first to keep that up. Strings, I guess we call them ints for now, integers, and booleans. So what do these mean? Uh, um, we'll talk about Replit stuff later. I mean, like after class or something. You don't have to follow along with the class as we go. Just like pay attention and listen. Yeah, anyway, we can talk about it after class. So strings are just characters, like words, for example, but strings, they have to be in quotation marks. So again, I recommend you use double quotes, but technically a single quote would also work. It's a good habit to use double quotes because it's just more common. So double quotes, right, and then whatever you want inside. So strings can be like characters, or they could be numbers or anything, or like special characters like an exclamation mark or whatever. Integers, if you know math, right? Integers are basically those numbers that don't have decimal points. Right? Same thing in programming. Integers are basically just positive and negative whole numbers. There's another thing called floats, if you've heard of those before. Those are the numbers with decimal points. We're not going to really talk about that because it's not super important. But integers, think just as numbers. And for example, this would be an integer, but this is a string. So it's a major difference that you need to know is if there are quotation marks, it's a string. If there are no quotation marks, then it's not a string. And in this case, if we take away those quotation marks, this becomes an integer. This is 5, which is a number. So integers basically think of numbers. And then Boolean is either true or false. So it's just true or false. That's the numbers. So Booleans are just true or false values. So Booleans are only two possible things it could be. It could either be true or it could be false. And so these are the three major data types. Well, now let's talk about variables as well before we get into any of the programming stuff. So if you've learned in math what a variable is, same thing here in programming, similar concept. So basically what happens is you have like, whoops. Um, huh. Anyways, okay, so you have like a name of a variable. So we'll call it like variable one or something. So variable one is just a variable, but then you can put something into it. So like hello, for example. You can put that into variable one, and now variable one equals hello. So when you try to print variable one, it's going to look for what variable one equals, and it's going to print hello. Similar to, like, say, math, for example, where if you said x equals 5, and then you tell me, and I asked what's x, well, x equals 5, similar to that. So same thing in programming variables. It's just something that is like a placeholder, and you can put something into that variable, and you can change it as you go. So uh, that's a variable. All right, let's um, start programming. So first thing is actually talk about last week. So there's one more thing that I forgot to mention, which is that when you try to print out a backwards slash. So this with like the backwards slash, the one that was under the backspace. So this is a forward slash, this is a backward slash. They're different. So again, if I try to print, like for example, I want to print that backward slash. You see that there's an error here, because and it will assume that you're trying to skip a line in the console. So instead, when you're trying to actually print a backward slash, a literal backward slash in the console, you're actually going to have to do it twice. So two backward slashes, if you run them, it's one backward slash. So that's just something to keep in mind. Again, if you do it once, you're going to run into an error. There's going to be an error. So yeah, just keep that in mind. All right. Yeah, there didn't seem to be any issues on the homework either. So we're going to move on to today. All right. So in Python, to create a variable, you don't need any special like words or anything. All you need is the name of the variable. So for example, word. That's going to be the name of our variable. Okay, and then what's going to happen is going to be equals and it can be something. So let's do a string hello. So again, this is a string because there are double quotation marks. That's not supposed to be there. Yeah, double quotation marks means it's a string. And again, strings are all just characters or whatever. So in other programming languages, you might see like, let me get my annotation tool out. In other languages, you might see like var and then the variable name equals and then the value. In Python, you don't need to use var. It's just name equals what, right? And another thing to keep in mind is that whoops. There's a single equal sign here. This is called an assignment operator. It's not so important right now, but once we get to if statements, you'll see why this was important. There's only one equal sign here, which is important. Keep in mind. So again, variable name equals, and then what does that variable equal? So what are you going to set that variable to? And same thing if you want to change that variable later on. So like for example, we can print word. Notice that I didn't put quotation marks because if I put quotation marks, it would literally print word out in the console. For example, here, if I run here, you'll see that word equals hello. And when I try to print word, again, there's no quotation marks. I didn't put any quotation marks here. It's going to look for word, which is right here. And again, it's going to look for what does word equal? And it equals hello. So it's going to print hello in the console. As opposed to if I put this in quotation marks, it would literally print word in the console. More clear. It would literally print word in the console, which again, depending on what you want, might not be what you're trying to do. So again, no quotation marks means you're not trying to print the string, you're trying to print the variable, and again, the variable equals hello in this case. So this also works with like numbers, for example. So for example, 8. By the way, they do color code stuff. So you see here the string was like orangish colored numbers. I guess I have dark mode on. I'm not sure if this is the same in light mode, but you can see it's like a greenish color. But if we press run here, it's gonna print 8 in the console. And this 8 is actually different from the string 8. You can't see it print 8 here. If I you don't see the difference here, but there is a difference. This is a string 8, and this is the number 8. And those are going to be different. We're going to talk about those tomorrow, unfortunately, but just keep that in mind. If you have quotation marks, you're literally typing out what's in the quotation marks. But if it's not, then it might represent something else. That's a main topic. So that's an integer. And the last data type is Booleans. So either true, again, Python is case sensitive. So the first letter has to be uppercase, has to be capitalized. Everything else has to be lowercase. So some other languages, they might have lowercase t. Python does not do that. And if you try to type lowercase t, you're going to see an error. And same thing here. It is color coded, so as you can see, if you type it in correctly, it's going to turn it into a different color. And again, there's no red squiggly line, so you know you did it right. And then opposite of true is false. Again, it also color codes to this like bluish color. So press run, it's going to print false. And again, this is a Boolean. This is not a string, even though it doesn't look like it changed anything in the console. If we type it in quotation marks, it's not actually going to change anything in the console, but we'll see tomorrow that there is a difference. Anyways, all right, now let's talk about changing a variable. So if you have a variable set already, what's great about Python is you don't need to check if you've already have a variable because again, there's no var thing. In other programming languages, if you use var and then you use var again, and depending on what you're using that var in, you might run into an error. But in Python, you don't need var. So if you haven't created a variable, great, you're creating a new variable. If you already have a variable with that name, it's just going to replace that variable with something else. So the way I learned it in my programming class at school, which I mean, I guess that's how they taught it. But think of a variable as like a Ziploc baggie, okay? And then you have a value, like for example, 5. You stick it into this baggie, which has a name, var 1, I guess. It has a name, and you put that value into the baggie. And then next time when you want to access the baggie, you're just going to look inside this baggie and whatever is inside of it, you're going to use. So if you put this value inside of this Ziploc baggie, you're going to see 5 in there, right? It's a clear bag. So that's basically what a variable is. And then when you have a new value you want to put in, like for example, 10, what's going to happen is you're going to take 5 out of the baggie and then put the 10 inside the baggie. So the 10 replaces the 5 gets deleted forever. So that's how variables work. So if you want to change a word after you set it, all you have to do is word. It's going to equal something else now. Let's do like, for example, hi. Right, so again, this is kind of self-explanatory, but it runs in order. So after it runs word equals false, then it's going to run word equals hi, and then it's going to print out the word. So if we press run here, it's gonna print out hi. And this is because it used to equal false, then you changed it to hi, and then you printed it out. So you didn't print it out before it changed. So you used to have false inside the baggie, then you took it out and put hi in it, and then you looked inside the baggie. So yeah, that's how that works. Yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say about this topic. Um, oh, I think that's it, actually. Does anyone have any questions about anything that we've talked about so far? About comments, print statements, the 3 data types, or variables? Any questions? Actually, yeah, one more thing. You can't name a variable starting with a number. So something like this, you can't do. Um, Variables have to start with a letter. You can have numbers afterwards and stuff, but you just can't have them at the beginning of your variable name. Just keep that in mind. So if you want to name something, you could name it like var1, but you can't name it 1 var. Whoops, 1 var. You can't name it 1 var. Yeah, any questions? It's pretty much can't put spaces in replacement of word. Oh yeah, you also can't put spaces in your variable. It has to be one connected word. So what they usually do is it depends on like again your programming language. There's no like need, but it is I guess tradition, standard to name something like a variable. For example, best word. If we wanted our variable name to be best word, some languages, I think it's called snake case or something, but it'd be like best. and then the start of the next word is going to be uppercase, something like this. So this is, you don't need to do this. You could have just made that W lowercase, but it is like industry standard to name your variables like this. Another way you might see variables named is with an underscore in between words. This is also something that you might see. I personally use just uppercase for each word. Yeah, again, no spaces for your variable name. It has to start with a letter, and uh, that's pretty much it. Again, it is industry standard to either uppercase the first word, the first letter of each word. The first word like this B in best. You can make it uppercase if you want. Um, I've learned to make the first one lowercase. I'm not sure if it really matters or anything, but yeah. So the limitations are um no the first letter can't the first character can't be a number, and no spaces. And also, actually, one more thing, it also can't be something that is already a thing. For example, you can't set your variable name to true with a capital T, because true already means something. You can make it lowercase t though. That could be your variable name because again, Python is case sensitive. So uppercase t and lowercase t are different. Yeah. Um, and you can have fun with your variable names. Yeah, another industry standard is to make sure your variable names actually are like actually mean something. So don't just name your variable one or variable two, something like that. The standard is to make your variable mean what it's supposed to mean. Like for example, if you're asking for a name, then something like name equal and then your string. Like I guess Jack. That's what the AI said. But anyways, that's the name. Um, like for example, if you want age, then you probably name your variable age so that when you access it in the future, you can easily know what that variable is going to hold. Like for example, age, I know it's going to hold a number and it's going to be the age of whoever we're dealing with right now. And the AI is autofilling to 9. But yeah. Questions? Any more questions? No questions? Awesome, then sounds good. The homework is posted in Google Classroom. I'll stay on for like 10 more minutes, I guess. So you can look up the homework. If you have any questions, just come back in, or you can just stay in and try to do your homework in this 10-minute time. It's super easy. Like it's like 5 minutes and you're done. So might as well do it now. If you have any questions, you can let me know like right now or within the next 10 minutes while I'm here. And yeah, the homework is just create 3 variables, one of each data type. So you have to create a variable with a string, create a variable with an integer, and then create a variable with one of the 2 possible Boolean values. And then I think you need to change the value of one of those variables, and you print all 3 of those variables out. And again, when you print the variable name, you just put print. So if you want to print name, you put print and then the name of the variable. So if you want to print name, you can do that. If you have another variable like age equals 10, you can also print age. Again, don't put quotation marks for this because if you put quotation marks, it's literally going to print the word age in the console. And you want to print what age equals. In this case, age equals 10. So you can print this out. Jack, and then 10. That was I need to clear console Jack and then 10. And this comes from line 3 and then line 4. And again, another part of the homework is you need to change the value of a variable. So for example, here, age, if you want to change it, you can make it age equals 6. Whoops. Age equals 6, something like that. And what that's going to do, again, age is a variable. You can think of a variable as a baggie. You take 10 out of the baggie, you put 6 into the baggie, you basically just throw the 10 away. So it used to be 10, then it becomes 6, and you print out the 8, which equals 6 at the last time you looked at it. So the baggie still has 6. Alters just means change. So I want you to alter a variable, which means I want you to change the value of a variable. So you can change the string, the number, or the Boolean. It doesn't matter to me as long as I can tell you know how to use those. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Yeah, if you have any questions, just you can speak now, I guess.